said they couldn't find any injuries that may have led to their deaths, even though some of them are crushed. And they said they all died of hypothermia. This is the original one. Even though Slobodan had a small crack in his skull, but they said, it probably wasn't fatal. It was definitely not that. Until they found, I guess, Thibodeau had major skull damage. That's the guy I believe you said his skull was showing.
It was showing. Yeah, it was completely showing. But it's hypothermia. I mean, if the skull fracture don't get you, the cold sure will. But Jesus Christ.
Welcome to the Conspiracy Kitchen.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for joining us in the Conspiracy Kitchen, where we try to find the secret ingredients behind daily mysteries. Today, we're going to look at the Devil's Pass incident with the hikers. It's a little interesting, weird thing that happened back in 1959. A lot of different theories on what could have happened. And, yeah, I think we're going to have to dive in there and look at it and then talk about the theories and then talk about the movie that was made in 2013.
Yeah, the hit motion picture.
Devil's Pass. 100% great movie. All right, so to start, this was back in 1959, like I said, in Russia. It's very cold. I believe it got to like -40 on the night of the incident. Winds up to 60, 70 miles per hour, which could be 100 to 110 kilometers. We had 11 hikers. It was originally 10. It was Igor Dyatlov, which is what the incident was named after, and that's what they called Dyatlov Pass. We also had a Yuri Doroshenko, a Ludmila, a Gregory Krinvonichenko. I'm going to butcher these, dude. That's right. Alexander Kolovastov, Ziandia Kolmogorov, yeah, Rustem Slobodin, Nikolai Thibodeau, Simon, which is the added guy, and Yuri Yudin. Now, Simon apparently was part of a different group, and the group that Igor, or the trail that Igor wanted to do, number 5 trail, needed 11 people, and he only had 10. So they added this random 38-year-old to his group, Simon Zolotaryov, which, I mean, at 38, I don't know if he should have been even attempting this, to be honest. But I guess they said he was a skilled hiker, so, and a ski expert, ski trainer.
38's too old.
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't do it at 32.
Dude, I'm 32. I hate going to clean the snow off of my Jeep. His asshole's hiking in mountains.
With feet of snow and cold and I don't know, dude. That guy never should have. I don't know. To me, 38, yeah, and find something else. At this point, you're like a midlife crisis type thing going on, I think.
I mean, this whole expedition was just riddled with poor decision making, so
the whole time, just like the movie.
Yeah, we'll just add him to the list of that.
Yeah, so January 25th, 59, they took a truck to the northernmost inhabited settlement in this oblast. On the 27th, they made their trek towards Gora Otorten. And on January 28th, Yuri decided to turn around. He has several health ailments, congenital heart defect, rheumatism. So, I don't even know why he was attempting it. A 38-year-old, this guy who apparently has a horrible heart. And he said he had to turn back because he had a bum knee. So he got out of there and went back. I guess the only smart one out of the group. And from there, they again headed north, had cameras, took pictures, which we get into a little later with some of these pictures in the theories. On the 31st, they arrived at edge of a highland area and began to prepare for climbing. They were supposed to send a postcard or telegram back to their sports club when they returned to Vidsa Hai, which they said would happen no later than February 12th. Now, obviously never sent that telegram on the 12th, but they didn't really think much of it. They thought, man, maybe he got delayed. Didn't make a big deal about it until the 20th. Still no word, so they decided to send out and ask for a rescue operation. Another 6 days passed, and on February 26th, they finally decided to send out these search team. I don't know. I feel like in America we do it a little different, but I guess it's neither here nor there. They did send out planes and helicopters to join the operation. Now, they got to this tent. Setup was at the base of not a steep hill, but a mountain. And I guess because of the winds and stuff, there's evidence that they built a little snow wall. They put the tent down. They had skis and stuff out. And when they got to the tent, they found that it looked like it was cut from the inside out. So they're trying to leave. So, and they proved it with, whatever scientific method they did. They said, yeah, the knife came from the inside, tore it open, and they left. Now, there was skis still left outside. There was a flashlight left there that still worked. So I guess it was off, just laying there, but it wasn't snow covered. The tent was kind of knocked down with some snow on it, but not a lot. And there was footprints off into the woods. Now the footprints don't seem to be like they were running. However, they had by the footprints you can tell some of them were barefoot, some of them were wearing just socks, maybe one shoe, but not both shoes. So they seemed to have wanted to leave in a hurry, but they didn't run after they were leaving. So that kind of weird in a way. And just seems weird to me. Later on, about 600 meters, 500 meters away, to the northeast, they found what looked like a little fire had been built. Trees were kind of broken, branches down. They found the first couple bodies. Yeah, the first two bodies were Krivanizhenko and Doroshenko. They were both shoeless and only wearing underwear. So, I mean, seems kind of odd to be wearing underwear only in -40, especially if you're not running from anywhere. They found more people, about another 600 feet. They were Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, who died. And they said that the way they looked like they were trying to climb, maybe back up to the tent. So they died of exhaustion or something. And then it took another 2 months to find the remaining hikers. The four more of them. About another 300 feet into the woods farther, where the fire was found next to that giant Siberian pine tree. They were all better dressed than the others. It seemed like they maybe took the clothes off the dead people, maybe they were thinking. And again, they had some kind of gruesome injuries. These people had cracked skull. Two of them had cracked skulls. Now, without any signs of external injuries, just internal. The other ones had severe chest trauma. Again, without signs of external injuries. Which to me just puts it like, how does this happen? It doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form to have just external injuries without having, or internal injuries, I'm sorry, without having external injuries. Does that make sense?
They tried to say, avalanche, but there were no signs of that.
Yeah, so Russia actually started reinvestigating this in 2019. They said they did all their investigating, took all the information back from when they did this. The scout team went out and investigated it back in 1959, and they came to the conclusion that it was an avalanche.
Yeah, because that would cause... Oh my god. Well, all right. Let's start with this for a second, because these weren't inexperienced assholes. They were level 2 hikers, which at the time, completing this 16-day trek.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, if they were to complete that, it would make them a level 3, which is top tier hiking. Which is a big deal for Russia at the time, because this is the Cold War. And so they knew what they were doing. The way they found some of these people, the one girl, God bless her, what was it, tongue was missing. Eyes were missing.
Yeah, Ludmila.
Oh boy, did she get it bad.
Yeah, she had her eyes missing, tongue missing, some teeth.
Her incisors were
Incisors
gone.
are missing. Yeah. Now they just chalked it up to a fox or something, a snow fox.
Yeah, because they like to take the teeth with them, I guess. But
Someone else had their eyes missing. There's two people with missing eyes.
yeah, was she? I'm pretty sure it was her and then a guy.
Yeah, I think it was Thibodeau who had his eyes missing, but I could be wrong. And that does again, did eyes just pop out from an avalanche that actually didn't even happen.
Like a cartoon, they couldn't believe what they were seeing, and their eyes just
Just-
popped out. Oh, go!
So the avalanche theory is they're saying that there might not have. So they're saying there was a snow slate or something they call it, where it just a little bit of snow fell, but it caused cracking noises. And they're saying that these experienced hikers that have been dealing with snow and everything else heard that and freaked out, tucked their way out of the tent, hoping to not be crushed by an avalanche, and ran off into the woods, scattered, not even sticking together. Some built a fire, some tried to get back to the tent, I guess, and all kinds of other things, and there was no avalanche. So if there was actually no avalanche, like they're saying, it could have been like just this little slate or whatever they call it of snow that slid. Why would there be extreme injuries to some of them the way they are?
Yeah, it doesn't add up.
It doesn't answer that question. And especially, wouldn't an avalanche, if you're hit with it like ice or snow and that, wouldn't it leave external injuries like bruising and stuff?
Yeah, there was not. Well, there were some external injuries, but not any that would come from that. Like the other girl was found, her lips were gone, like gnawed off, and she was found just kind of propped up, like hunched over, dead.
Yeah,
I guess avalanches just,
steal your eyeballs
yeah,
and your teeth.
knock them right out of your head.
So then, obviously Yuri, dodged a bullet on this one because he died all the way. He was 76 when he died. He died in 2013.
Bum ass.
he fucking avoided that shit and rode it out for the rest of his life.
I'm
Now,
sorry. He annoys me.
Why does he annoy you?
Oh, I'll explain.
Go ahead, explain.
Russia is, mainly cold, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cold up there.
And if you have a bum knee, the cold always fucks with it. It hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So you mean to tell me this asshole didn't know he had a bum knee before they trekked all the way up there? And then just said, oh, you know what, guys? You go ahead. I'm going to hang out at this bar. I'll wait for you for 16 days.
Yeah, and then so all his gear, I think they had to carry his extra gear, the food and stuff,
What a
supplies.
What a
shithead. So now one less person. And remember, this was supposed to be for 11 people, and this guy just turns around.
Yeah, you guys go ahead. It's like, but Yuri, we paid for you to take the train and the truck on. You go ahead.
We're gonna go back. We're not doing this.
Just
So
what a waste.
And I like how the medical examiners back then said they couldn't find any injuries that may have led to their deaths, even though some of them are crushed. And they said they all died of hypothermia. This is the original one. Even though Slobodan had a small crack in his skull, but they said, it probably wasn't fatal. It was definitely not that. Until, they found these freaking, I guess, Thibodeau had major skull damage. That's the guy, I believe you said his skull was showing.
It was showing. Yeah, it was completely showing. But it's hypothermia. I mean, if the skull fracture don't get you, the cold sure will. But Jesus Christ.
And then, Dubinina and Zolotaryov had major chest fractures. Multiple broken ribs, I guess, which they said you need extreme force, like if you were in an extremely terrible car accident, but there is no external wounds associated with the bone fractures. So when you have that kind of a trauma, you would expect external wounds to the chest. That's just me. I don't know. That's just me.
You would think, yeah.
And those four were found at the bottom of a creek, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
They had some soft tissue damage, but none of them that showed like like something hitting someone in the chest. And the avalanche thing, the picture of the tent, I thought if an avalanche came down or anything, the tent would be completely covered in snow, not just like a little bit of snow on it, and it pushed over.
It couldn't be farther from that. It's like sitting right on top of the snow, all gingerly placed with a hole cut in it. Like there's no avalanche at all.
None, none at all.
There's that, and then when they go into the tracks of when they like all went in different directions, none of them are running. They're it's like they walked down the mountain at a calm pace.
Yeah, the tracks all showed like they left on their own accord, like on foot walking,
Barefoot.
barefoot, one shoe. Some of them had one shoe, some of them just in socks. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. They were saying that that's because the avalanche woke them up, and they just in a hurry got out of the tent. But there's barely any snow on that thing. I mean, I can see if it's dark and you don't know what's going on, you hear cracking, you think you're going to get crushed by an avalanche. But they said, one, these guys are very, like I said before, extremely experienced. Why would they would know not to build their tent or camp in a place that could potentially be destroyed or run over by an avalanche? And two, they said this area was not prone to avalanches. It wasn't the right pitch. The way the snowfall was and the wind and all this stuff, it didn't breed avalanches in this area.
No, not at all. And the other thing is like they found a bunch of them with, in their underwear or whatever, which yeah, some of them could have taken their clothes or whatever, but like it's not like they're sleeping in their underwear in a tent in the middle of the tundra. How warm do you think that tent is on the inside? It's still fucking freezing.
It should be somewhat cold. Although, one of them in their journal, I don't know if it might have been Simon, because I think he wrote the most. He said that when they were in the tent, it was warm. So I'm not sure. But I still can't see. I can't see it being that where you're just in underwear. But maybe. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird one to me.
Yeah.
And to this day, none of the documents released by the Russian government talk about any of their internal injuries or organs. They don't talk about any of that. They don't say if anything, was smashed. They don't talk about it at all. It's just, avalanche. That's it.
Yeah, because that's when, the theories start to kick in, and there is quite a few of them.
Yeah. There was one guy who was doing a study on it. He said that the fatal injuries to the three bodies that were destroyed could not have been caused by human beings because the force of the blows has been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. So he ruled out any type of them hurting each other because there was one theory about them just turning on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that could have been because of the infrasound. I don't know if you heard about infrasound. With the frequencies of sound can cause you to be uncomfortable and actually drive you nuts, cause mental distress, and that's caused by the wind being in certain directions and stuff that causes, I think it's 4 hertz sound.
Yeah, it's the wind in different directions at different pitches through the mountains.
Yeah,
that it fucks with your psyche because it's very you don't notice it happening. You don't notice the sound. It's all in the back of your mind, but it fucks with you to the point where it makes you very uneasy and start to act in ways you never have before, like panicking at crazy levels.
Causes panic attacks. But I heard they did a test on it, and that area could not produce that pitch and that frequency of noise. They've tried. They did all kinds of studies on it, and they said that area could not produce that infrasound. So I guess that's debunked too, from my point of view.
Yeah, because reading up on this is the first time I ever heard about infrasound, and I don't know, have they ever been able to produce that anywhere?
I'm I'm assuming some kind of thing, but I don't see. They said they couldn't produce it here, like the way that everything, the mountains were, the trees and everything. They said they couldn't produce that. So
Debunked.
I'm saying it's debunked.
Yeah. There was also, right after this happened and everyone started questioning the government, like, oh, was this an avalanche? I don't think it was, blah, blah, blah. They immediately turn and they're like, oh, well, we think the indigenous people in the area had something to do with it. We think they killed them. It's like, wow, way to throw people under the bus.
It's just, it was them.
Yeah. But no, that got debunked too, because there's no signs of them being nearby. There was no
other footprints.
No other footprints in the area at all. Well, there was. We'll get into that. There was one set, but we'll get into that. But yeah, there's nothing about the indigenous people, and they were just kind of sitting there like, "What the fuck, man? Like, you're gonna blame this on us?"
And there was also the theory of paradoxical undressing. They brought that up too, saying that the hypothermia was causing them to feel like they were overheating, and that's why they left the tent, tried to take clothes off, throw themselves into a freaking river, I guess, and eventually die. Die from exposure from having their clothes off and stuff. But again, they weren't running around. Like all this stuff, like you would think any one of these so far would cause them to run. And according to the footprints, I guess you do by distance and width, like how far they're apart. It didn't look like they were running. It looked like they were kind of just walking. So again, I don't know if paradoxical undressing was part of it. They left the tent and just walked into the woods to die, really.
Yeah, he just kind of fucked off into the cold.
Yeah, but that doesn't add to the it's like some of these people were mutilated, like just completely crushed in their chest, and it's very, very strange situation going on.
Yeah, hypothermia does crazy things.
It crushes your body.
Yeah. There's another one. One of them was found with signs of radiation, right?
Yeah, there was radiation. I think a couple of them had it on their clothes, right? Levels of radiation. Not enough to, like, hurt you, but enough to say that you came in some contact with some kind of radioactive material, which didn't make any sense, and they had no explanation for this.
No, because there's nothing nearby that would have produced it. I mean,
yeah, you're just in a tundra. Just an empty tundra with high winds and snow. Now, the one that I can kind of get behind, the theory, would be Russian, like, military tests where the Soviets were testing parachute mines. The only thing it doesn't answer for me would be why they weren't, like, running. Unless they ran weird, with short strides, doesn't make any sense. But in a lot of their accounts, and in the search team's accounts, they saw glowing orbs in the sky, right? So then this kind of falls in with that too. So you had these parachute mines that would drop down on a parachute, and they would explode in the air, not on the ground, to test them. Now that causes shock waves. One of the only things that I know of that can cause internal damage without external damage would be shock waves. Because there's nothing physically hitting your body, but it can damage inside behind the skin. So you can carve that. So I'm thinking maybe they're all sleeping, and these parachute mines went off. Because it was shown that they did test parachute mines kind of around this area. You wake up from loud explosions. You don't know what's going on. You cut the tent from the inside to get out quickly, thinking you can repair the tent later. And you leave, and some, I guess, were undressed because it was so hot in that tent for some reason. And they ran out to get away, and some of them further down must have got hit by the shockwave, the ones that had the skulls and chest injuries. And the other ones were just trying to survive the night, and maybe they did die from hypothermia and couldn't get back to the tent because maybe it was too dark to see. You didn't know which way you're going, the wind, the cold, negative 40 degrees and 60-mile-an-hour winds, and it's dark. Might not be the best conditions to try to find your tent. And especially since they said they found a flashlight near the tent, and no one else had flashlights on them. So I guess someone left the flash. Someone shit the bed and didn't bring the flashlight. This is the closest one I would think could be an explanation. For some reason, Russia does not use this one. They just use it. I guess they don't want to take responsibility. They just use the avalanche there.
I mean, it's a good theory. When it comes to the Russian government and all of that, I feel like it could have been a staged incident. Like, they stumbled across a testing ground that they shouldn't have, or came across some kind of just something they weren't supposed to see, and they were killed off by the Russian government. And then the whole thing would have been staged, because the whole thing with the tent annoys me, because you don't need to cut a tent open to get out of it quickly, especially that shitty tent. There's no zippers. They just left. But I feel like they could have been killed off by the Russian government, and then they were trying to stage it to look like an animal attack, so they put a big hole in the tent, but some asshole fucked up and cut it from the inside because he's a dumbass. And then that also leads into the other thing I mentioned about the footprints, because when they were checking out the area, a lot of the footprints were barefoot, but there was one set that didn't make sense because it was a pair of military grade boots.
Yes.
That they did not find on any of the bodies.
Oh, okay, yes. So there's that. And then the other thing I've heard to go along with the staging of it, they said when they looked at the tent was set up incorrectly. They said the tent was not put up correctly. If these people are stage or class 2 hikers, whatever you want to call them, would they have put a tent up incorrectly?
Never.
Never. Doesn't. So was that tent now staged there? Were they even in that area? Like, was that tent actually were they actually in that tent? Or was that tent just left there to make it look like they were there at some point? Because if you remember, they said there was nothing in the tent, but they didn't have clothes.
Also, how many tents did they have? Because
I think they all slept in one tent.
Didn't look so big.
Yeah, they all cuddled.
Well, they gotta keep warm.
They keep warm with body heat, cuddle all together in the tent. I'm assuming the tent blocked. Well, that's where they have the snow. Well, a snow wall would be made to block wind through the tent. So I guess you can. I mean, with the tent keeping the heat in and all the body heat, I guess you can keep it kind of warm. It'd be kind of weird if we're all cuddling and someone just decides to be in underwear only, and you don't really, especially if it's 38-year-old Simon decided to come along.
Yeah, Simon, the 38-year-old sex symbol in the snow. Yes,
comes along and he's just in there, with no pants on, and you're all trying to lay together, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, excuse me."
Whose hand was that?
Exactly. So just to have the tent the way it was, I don't know if this tent was even there. This tent could have been moved for all I know. This crime scene could have been somewhere else. And in this kind of situation, I mean, how hard would it be to find if you move the bodies? How hard would it be to find the actual crime scene? I would say damn near impossible, right?
Oh, extremely. It took them how long to find the rest of the bodies?
It took them another 2 months to find the other bodies in the lake. So could that have been set up? And then some people just kind of walked around to make it look like they left the tent. And then some moron left his fucking military boots on. And you're like, yo, dumbass, what are you doing? You're supposed to be like barefoot so we don't, or socks so we don't, oh, you idiot. And then they just left them, didn't even cover them up, I guess. And then the bodies could have been placed, right?
It would be so easy to get away with it. It would be so easy. And just blame it on a fucking avalanche.
And blame it on an avalanche. But what if it was Yuri all along?
I was thinking the same thing.
So I've never seen anyone talk about this. I looked at the different things. Have you seen any accounts of them saying Yuri could have done it?
No.
No. So what if Yuri, being the, bad-hearted, bum-kneed guy that he is, was sick and tired of them making fun of him because he couldn't hike. You know what I mean? Oh, look at this guy with his rheumatism and his congenitive heart defect and his bum knee. This guy can't even. We're always better than him. And maybe, Yuri was, looking at maybe a Zinade. What's her name?
Zeneda.
Zenaida. Maybe he was, fancying her, but then Igor, he's being a better hiker, got her. Right? So then he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll go on this trip, and we'll make sure it's named after Dyatlov when he dies." And he set up this whole thing.
I was thinking the same thing, but I feel like Yuri just wanted to come in, sneak up behind them, kill them all off, and be the only sole survivor. So he's the golden boy, the best hiker.
Is there proof that he never left when he came back? Say he came back he turned around. Is there proof that he turned around and just sat, and everyone knew where he was that whole time, especially back in 1959?
I'm gonna say no, because everyone that knew he was there was dead on a mountain.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm looking at a picture of him right now. He has the face. I don't mean to talk ill of the dead, but he is the face of a serial killer.
Yeah, Yuri Yudin.
He's unhinged.
Not Yuri Durashenko. He died, but Yuri Yudin.
Yuri Yudin.
The one with even sounds like he could possibly be a serial killer.
They got Yudined.
So on January 28th, when he turned around, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, he was gonna hang back, maybe give them a head start, follow them up the mountain in his military boots, and then kill everyone and be the golden hiker boy. But then the story caught too much traction. And he knew that if he stayed there, they would question him too much. So he just snuck back down the mountain and said, "Fuck that shit."
Yeah. And it's funny because after Yudin left because he was ill, or his bum knee, he describes, or he speculated, this is what he speculated, somehow he speculates, that Dyatlov made a mistake, and because of decreasing visibility, he ended up diverting west and didn't actually cross, because they were supposed to go over the pass and set up camp on the opposite side of the pass. But they said he may have diverted west because of the worsening conditions, and then made a camp on the slope of the mountain, and didn't want to go, just go a little bit downhill to a forested area for protection, because Dyatlov didn't want to lose altitude he had gained, or because he wanted to practice camping on a mountain slope. This is Yuri Yudin back in town said he speculated all this happening and why they were in a different spot than what they were supposed to be.
Yeah, he's making all these speculations. Meanwhile, he's got blood on his boots. No one's questioning that.
No one's questioning why he's got blood on his paramilitary boots.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Yuri, you didn't serve. What's with the boots, bud? Asshole.
So how'd he do it? How'd he crush them?
Well, there was reports that one of the, some of the injuries looked like it was made by a baton.
The head injuries, right?
Yeah, because one of them was struck in the back of the head.
Yeah. Could have been a baton. But we got to figure out if Yuri did this, Yuri Yudin. How did he crush their chests? Did he get a hold of one of these parachute mines? Maybe. So the other thing that's kind of odd is that when it was first done, they just said that they all died of compelling natural force. No one was guilty, and all the fires were sent to a secret archive. So why would you classify this?
Why would if it was just an avalanche, why would they cover anything up? Or why would they be so coy?
Yeah, why would they have to cover it up? Then there's another weird thing. So Zolotaryov's remains were exhumed in 2018. I don't know if you knew this.
No.
So they exhumed his remains, and they said the injuries looked like he was hit by a car. They did a DNA test on his body. It did not match a DNA of any of his living relatives.
Wait a minute. So wait, the DNA didn't match any of his living relatives.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that person was military, went off with the military, planted a different body. There you go. Boom.
So this is Simon, the old man.
Oh no. Not so.
So yeah, his last name is Zolotaryov, Simon Alexander Zolotaryov. So the old man that joined the group. This is what I wanted to get at. So we could have Yuri, but why was Simon's body? The DNA doesn't match his relatives. Why is that? And they just said, whatever. Like literally, they just were like, it could have happened.
C'est la vie. All right.
And get this. Simon's name was not on the list of those buried at that cemetery. But they just buried all of them at the cemetery on this tomb. In the Ivanovskoye cemetery. They buried it. But then they just said they cleared it up, as they always do. They fixed it all up and said that, well, the picture post-war, the exhumed skull matched post-war photographs of Simon, and it's him. Even though the DNA doesn't match his relatives. But don't worry about this.
That's not how that works.
Nothing to see here, Josh. The DNA doesn't... We don't care about the DNA. His skull, his exhumed skull from when he died in 1959 until 2018 when it's dug up, so it's going to look just like him, right? There's not going to be any changes. It matches his World War II photographs. So don't worry. It's him.
Wait, so Simon served?
Yeah, apparently so. Pre-war, they're saying, yeah, he served. And in his post-war, I'm pretty sure everyone pretty much served in World War II in Russia. If you were a male. Because he was born in 21, so he would have been 20. You know what I mean? During World War II. He definitely would have served.
Did Yuri serve? Let me look at this now.
He might have been too young. Yuri? Yeah, he was too young. He was born in 37. I mean, he was 21 and 59. He would have been too young.
Too young, yeah.
Yeah, way too young. But isn't that odd that his DNA doesn't match? The one guy that they plant, Russia says has to be part of the group because you need 11. It's probably some bullshit thing they made up on the spot. And then they go into the woods. Yuri doesn't go in. Was this a hired hit?
Yeah, I think Simon. This is interesting.
It's a very interesting thing because he's just randomly put in like the day before. They say he dies of severe chest trauma. And that's him. Don't worry about it. It's him. But then you look, and his DNA doesn't match. There's no name Simon Alexander Zolotaryov in the cemetery. But don't worry, guys. His decayed skull matched a picture of him from 1959, and this is 2018.
I mean, if his decayed skull matches a picture, that guy's an ugly fucker to begin with. I'm just gonna put it out there. But yeah, Yuri, I'm looking, and the funny thing is, when they have, if you Google the pictures of the hikers, uh, Simon and Yuri are right next to each other. Yeah, I know that doesn't mean shit, but it's just funny.
It's a very odd thing.
Yeah,
Maybe he befriended Yuri. Maybe they're talking. He's like, listen, dude, I'm gonna fuck these guys up. Say your knee hurts. Get out of here.
your knee hurts.
Get out of here. I'll spare you, dude. And then he just took everyone else out.
I like to think
And
it's
he served, so wouldn't he have? He might have boots.
well, he might have boots, yeah,
He
but
might have the military boots that they saw that you talked about.
he definitely would. I know a lot of ex-military people, and for no reason at all, they continue to wear their boots. So it's
So
very likely.
that's why the paramilitary boots were not found on any of these bodies, because Simon, who had him, is left. He's out of there. They whatever pure slub they killed and threw and said it was Simon. Didn't have boots, obviously. So maybe they were all in the tent and they got the fuck out quick because Simon was like, I'm gonna just trying to kill him.
I think Simon. I think Simon brought along somebody and said, "Hey, this is my guy. He's experienced. I want him to come along too." And then killed him off. Staged him as himself. Staged the body as himself. And then fucked off with his military boots.
Or did they find something? Was something discovered? Because usually the tongue, right? To have someone with their tongue cut off, isn't it like a sign like don't talk?
Yes.
So you had Ludmila, her tongue was cut out. She also had she died from internal bleeding from severe chest trauma. But I wonder, did they find something they weren't supposed to? He's military. You know, they send him with the group. Don't let him, you know, we have shit going on up there. Don't make sure they kind of don't. And they veered off course and they found something. Or was it Yuri Yudin and Simon in cahoots?
Maybe they had a little romantic thing going.
He told Yuri to turn around. You don't want to see this?
Yeah, because he had a job to do, Simon. Because he was military, and he knew that they could possibly stumble across something they're not supposed to see. So he said, "Listen, Yuri, you little cutie, you stay down here at the bar. I'm gonna handle this, and we'll reconvene later for a drink." And Yuri said, "Okay,
No problem, right? I don't want to die too.
you got it. Nice mustache."
Did the skull still have the mustache?
I like to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great mustache.
So yeah, I mean, I guess these weren't really dumb people either, right? They were studying, they were in college at the time, right? They're at, what was it, the Ural Polytechnical Institute. I mean, I guess they were pretty much educated. I wonder if they're going to stumble across something that Simon did not like. Because for Simon, just again, to not match any DNA of his living relatives, it blows my mind. And when I saw this before, yesterday, and I was like, no way. This guy doesn't match DNA, and then his name isn't even on the buried list. Something's going on.
And I don't mean to get all jonesed over murder, but it's the perfect crime.
It's the perfect crime, dude. You go out with the hiking crew in this place.
Because it's what, 60 years later, more than that, and they still haven't, they still can't come to terms or like figure out what it was for sure.
Well, what's funny is that in 2018 they do this and they find out his DNA doesn't match and they just say, the pictures, his head looks the same as the pictures. And then literally a few months later in 2019, so it was at the end of 2018 they did this. A few months later in 2019, Russia says, oh no, we got to open the case again. We got to investigate it again. And then goes, yeah, it was a snow slab avalanche. Case closed.
Nailed it.
You know what I mean? Like, why were they so quick when that detail came out to have to open the case again and then again blow it up that it was an avalanche?
Yeah, because they got to cover their ass and say, "Oh, well, we looked at it."
So, yeah, that's what maybe the Russian government knew, but I think this guy, Simon, I guess he's dead now because he would be 104. But this guy just has to join the group, much older, and then his body's just somehow placed. And they don't even know they don't have his birthday. They don't know they only give us 1921. They don't even give us, like, his tombstone didn't even say his birthday and month. This guy was some kind of KGB or something. And I'm tired of the cover-ups with the freaking avalanche. I mean, there's a couple other theories I guess we didn't get to yet, but that was the one that blew my mind.
It baffles me because that was one I was not aware of at all.
Yeah, I thought I'd hit you with a little razzle-dazzle.
You did. You dazzled me.
So well, you still have one. You have a picture, but I guess this one's kind of. Maybe we should have brought it up after your picture, but
I mean, this one being the most plausible one. Not like the picture found on one of the rolls of film by one of these hikers of a big figure in the distance. And, you know, there's Bigfoot, there's that, but there's also a yeti.
Snow yetis.
Yeah, which is Bigfoot but white.
Yes. So instead of being brown furred, he's white furred, and he lives in the snow instead of the woods.
Yeah. And this picture, it's obviously very grainy, and people say, "Oh, it's just someone in a snowsuit." Blah blah blah. It's very Yeti-esque. I'm sorry, but it's very. I don't know. That maybe it's just my dumb opinion, but it looks not human.
Yeah. So for you guys, if you want to see it, it'll be put on. We're gonna put it on Instagram and X.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram Conspiracy Kitchen, X Conspiracy Kitchen Podcast, at Conspira Kitchen if you want to go through the @ We'll have it up there if you want to check it out. It is kind of, I guess you could say, Yeti-esque, if you will. I mean, yeah, the quality's not that good, but it's a camera from 1959. So obviously it's not going to be good. So we'll look at it. If you want to look at it, you can speculate the Yeti incident. Do you think a Yeti's strong enough to make it seem like you got hit by a car?
Yeah.
But the problem is, would Yeti leave external wounds?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, that the external wound thing is always this little like caveat that we cannot figure out.
That's what makes this case so interesting.
It's a very interesting case. Very interesting. So we got the Yeti. And then you have the always going to be part of the conspiracies on anything aliens.
That was another big one because they were saying, didn't they get multiple reports of like lights in the sky?
Yeah, even the search crews in their journals mentioned that they seen lights in the sky, orange glowing orbs. So, and they mentioned them themselves, the hikers mentioned it in their journals of glowing orbs. So that's another thing that's a little odd, which could be, like I was saying, maybe the mines, but I feel like if you were able to see the light, you probably hear them. If a mine's exploding in the sky, you see the orange glow, but wouldn't you hear it?
Yeah, that'd be something pretty hard to miss.
Yeah, so something like that, that was odd. So I have a pocket watch. My kids got me for Father's Day. It's hanging on the wall. And I looked up and it was rocking back and forth. But anyway, so if I die or something happens to me, it was Simon. Because I'm talking. They're after me. But, yeah, the orbs were weird. So could it have been UFOs?
Yeah, it could have been like an abduction situation where they were put right back down where they were found the first time, or because that could explain the internal injuries without any external, because aliens do weird shit.
Yeah. So could have been a probing gone wrong.
Yeah. Or in Simon and Yuri's case, a probing gone right.
Yes. Yes. So there's a couple other smaller theories besides the aliens. I don't really get the crushing of the skulls and stuff like that, unless, again, it was a probing gone wrong and they took off. But we also got, there was a smaller theory that said high winds blew one of the members away and they all went out looking for the person. But if the high winds blew a person away, I would pretty sure it'd throw the tent into the woods, probably. And I don't think an experienced group would all just run off into the woods looking for one person all together.
Never.
They wouldn't do that. There's another theory. An argument arose, and this is why some of them were partially dressed. Apparently, there was a romantic encounter by, multiple people, and someone got mad, and they got into a fight, which made them scatter. I mean, maybe.
Could you think of a worse place to have this happen? Like the timing, it's the worst timing ever.
Yeah, I don't know if they would have had just a big romantic encounter like that, and
let's have it out right now in the tundra. I'll see you outside.
After they were just all trying to, because multiple people were involved in this romantic encounter, they were saying that's why multiple people had no clothes on, that someone got mad. I don't think in the fight. I mean, how are you going to crush someone's chest? And then another smaller thing, they said they could have been magic mushrooms or hallucinogenic mushrooms that they were common up there in the Ural Mountains and stuff. So they said they consumed some magic mushrooms. They were all hallucinating and just walked off into the woods and died. But again, how is your skull crushed by a magic mushroom? Even if you fall, you're not crushing your skull.
No.
Could the winds throw you against a tree that hard?
No. And the one with the skull crush was found face down, so it's not like he fell back, crushed his skull, and bled out. I mean, God damn it.
So those are the ones I know of. Besides, you brought up the tribesmen, that there's no footprints of them. They're actually known to be peaceful around there. Those people, the indigenous people out there, and there was no animal tracks around, so we can't. No bears or anything, I guess. So that didn't happen.
At the time, it was like 17 below zero. So no, I don't think there was going to be much of anything out there.
Yeah. So it all goes back to Simon.
That bag of shit.
Because all the other stuff you could say what you want, but why would his DNA not match? How would it not match?
It doesn't make any sense.
He's obviously military trained. He fought in World War II. DNA doesn't match. His name's not on the buried list at the cemetery. Him and Yuri are, you said, pictured together next to each other. He must have warned Yuri. Simon did something. He may have had protecting something that they were close to finding, and that's why he cut her one tongue out. Don't talk. And he just wanted to take care of it. And then he was like, you know what? No loose ends. I can't even risk this. They're all dead. Maybe because they're so far apart, maybe one did find it. Right? So one found it, or they found it completely. They were like, oh, shit, what the and that's why the tent was set up wrong by the mountain, because they moved the tent. They moved the bodies and strung them all over the place. They found something they weren't supposed to see. And Simon took care of business.
Yeah.
But did Simon take all of them?
Yeah.
He probably could, right?
I think so. I think, maybe he set up maybe he set something up to cause somewhat of an avalanche scare, to cause everyone to go in different directions and then just take care of business one at a time.
Yeah.
I think before they went up in the mountain, they were all at a bar and they met this Simon, and him and Yuri started playing footsies under the table. And then he told him, "Hey, I don't think you should go up there. Maybe you sit this one out, Tiger. Maybe just say your knee hurts or something. I don't know."
Yeah, so they came along a little ways. He's like, "Listen, dude, you really got to turn around. I'll come back for you. Your knee hurts. Just turn around." And he went back. Could have been. Absolutely. Simon's the key in this. And for some of them to have radioactive clothing, I want to know who had the radioactive clothing? Who had it?
There was only one person, wasn't there?
Was it one or multiple?
I think it was just one.
Let's look this up. Let's check this out. Because I want to, it's very interesting to know who exactly was this person.
No, I think it may have been actually multiple. I don't know. I keep getting different answers.
So I get like one, or I get all four of the hikers in the ravine had measurable radioactive. But who was in the ravine? Simon was in the ravine.
Ah.
Or Simon's.
Or Simon says.
Simon says he was in the ravine, but that wasn't really Simon. Because Simon wasn't actually buried. I don't care if his face matched. His DNA didn't match anyone in his family. And it could have been... No, enough. And he wasn't even buried there, according to the burial charts. Or the...
Does DNA change over time? I don't think so.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely does.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Simon.
Definitely Simon. See, as soon as I heard, before I even found out all this crap about Simon yesterday, as soon as I heard that he was added and he was like way older, 38 and all this, I was like, I don't trust this guy.
Nah, something's amiss.
I wouldn't trust him. I would not trust him. And it's funny that this whole ordeal is now, well, they made a movie about a group going to what? Basically see if they can do the same thing these people did when they died.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It was a great movie. Should we talk about that?
we should get into the movie. Now, I personally did not watch the movie. I listened to the movie on a podcast, which happened to be, they do a good job over there. Fear and Wine had a podcast about this exact thing. They talked about it, but they do more. They talk about horror movies and shows, and they go over it. So if you like horror movies and you like wine, because they bring up every day, they bring up a different wine and what it goes good with. So if you don't know what wine you should have for dinner with your chicken or whatever, they can tell you. Fear and Wine, great. You can look them up on Spotify. Good show.
I'm going to check them out right after this, I think.
All right, good. But yeah, I think we should talk about the movie, because the movie is now based on this. It's like a found footage movie, kind of like Blair Witch. And they actually get a lot of details wrong in the movie. So you can begin, Josh. What's this movie about?
Because I did watch the movie.
I listened to the whole thing. It was a little over an hour on Fear and Wine for them, but they did a good job. I could picture it in my head.
Well, the movie's an hour and 40 minutes. I know that because I kept checking the clock.
When is this going to be over?
Pretty much. I started checking about 3 minutes in. Mind you, the first 2 minutes is them showing what studios worked on it, so it just logo after logo. Now, with any found footage movie, I find this, every character is just awful. They're just the worst people imaginable.
Now, well, you have to have actors you don't know.
Well,
so that it's found footage. You don't want to have, freaking some big actor out there that everyone knows. You don't want Nicolas Cage, because then you're like, this is a movie. This
I
ain't found footage.
look. Nicolas Cage is easily the greatest actor of all time. I'd watch anything. With anyway, we're getting off track. But in any found footage movie, it is a group of the worst people imaginable. I mean, in Blair Witch, you had the one who got fed up and threw the map into the river.
Like a complete asshole. Yeah.
Just a complete asshole with a ponytail. And then you get these people who you get the two people making the documentary, and it starts off with them watching a clip of one of their professors talking about the incident, and then the guy keeps pausing it basically to call her an asshole. Like, no, you're wrong, wrong again. It's like, all right, asshole, let her talk. And then you go, you meet the sound engineer, and she's just this punk rock chick. Who's like, oh, I work in sound. This is what I do. It's like, wow, you don't have her in every fucking found footage movie. And then you meet the ones who are gonna somewhat lead the expedition, the experienced hikers.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the know-it-all blonde boy who hiked the Himalayas, and then you got the guy who fucks everything but a couch. So
No couch fucking, no?
apparently not. But you bring them along, and they jump on the plane. They go over to Russia. They're on the train, and they're immediately making fun of each other because that's what they do. It's lighthearted jabs. And then they go to the bar, and they immediately, oh, we're gonna get drunk, yeah.
Now, why does everyone at the bar still speak pretty good English?
That's a phenomenal question, one that does not get explained. But they meet the bartender, and then he's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And like, "Yeah, we're gonna hike the Dyatlov Pass," and then the whole bar, in true movie fashion, just goes silent, like someone just let a putrid fart slip. Just goes silent, and he's like, "Oh, if you're gonna do that, you need to drink. I have something special for you." And he sets up the shot glasses, and they set them on fire, and they all take a shot. And then he's like, "Yes, that's what they drank right before they went on their first expedition." And then they all go silent because it's a bad omen. I guess, or not. Who knows? So I'm skipping the whole part where they meet the guy's mom because it's boring and pointless. So they go on their hike.
What was his aunt? Wasn't it his aunt?
His aunt, some bullshit.
Well, no, she's very important.
Kind of.
She's part of the search party.
She's part of the search party, but then as she's telling her story, again, in true found footage fashion, the video members, the crew members are just looking at each other like this broad's crazy. But it's like, all right, asshole, let her tell her story.
Yeah, she says they found 11 bodies when there's only supposed to be 9.
Oh, where'd it come from?
Where'd those other 2 bodies? Remember that? She's like, oh, but I found 2 more bodies. It was 11. And then they said, oh, don't worry about it.
She talked crazy. So they go hiking in the snow. And they're at it for a good while. And then they stop to camp for one night. Because it's getting dark and cold in Russia. So then they wake up the next morning. And they're freaking out. Or no, sorry, the night before, the 2 who started the whole documentary are out talking because the one guy's just standing there with binoculars for some dumb reason. It's dark out. And she's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, there was reports of lights in the sky. So I'm just looking out for that." She's like, "All right, well, it's fucking cold. Let's go to bed." He's like, "No, I'm going to keep looking into the dark for nothing." So they go to bed, and they wake up the next morning to one of them freaking out because there's footprints in the snow.
Oh, yeah, the big footprints.
Big-ass footprints in the snow. And it looks like it's all barefoot. So they're freaking out. And then everyone starts pointing fingers at each other like, "Oh, you're just fucking with us for your dumb movie." They're like, "I wouldn't do that," and blah, blah, blah. Then they continue on, And then they get to where the incident happens. And the two experienced hikers start freaking out because none of their equipment is working anymore. Because that's what happens in all of these movies. And one guy's freaking out. He's like, oh, this compass is a brand name insert here. And I hiked the Himalayas with this, and it should be working, but it's not working. It's like, oh, that's spooky.
It's the magnetic fields.
The magnetic fields are fucking with me. And then, let's see, they set up camp, and they find more footprints, and they're following them, and they find a weather tower?
Yeah, weather tower. Yeah.
This part may have happened before and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But
it's an important part, I guess. They climb into she climbs into the weather tower and opens the little hatch, and immediately goes and falls backwards. And it's like, oh, she found like a tongue.
She's found a tongue up in there. Yeah,
there's a tongue in the weather tower, and they're like, oh, that shouldn't be there. Anyway, let's keep going. They pay no mind to it.
Yeah, they don't care.
A tongue in a weather tower in the middle of a Russian tundra. Don't worry about it. Does not matter. So they continue on. And, this part happened. And then they find the actual site and they camp out there. And the girl starts getting a little nervous because according to the map, they shouldn't have reached that spot until midnight. But they got there like 8 hours early.
Yeah, they got there too early or some bullshit, yeah.
And they start freaking out, which, mind you, this doesn't turn into anything.
It doesn't matter.
This whole conversation means nothing when it comes to this movie, because they drop it immediately. They're like, all right, well, I guess we're fast. So they camp out. The sound girl and the other guy start going at it, as one does in a tundra, I guess, which again has nothing to do with the movie. They just felt the need to put that in there. Then the two who are starting the documentary, the guy and the girl, they find radiation.
Yes, so they go trying to find it. So they get their Geiger counter, whatever
Which
they call
that
it.
works, but the compass doesn't.
Yeah, so then they keep going towards they're like, oh, well, if we keep going and it goes up, that means we're going to find the source. And then they find that door.
They find a door on the side of the mountain.
And they're like, oh, we're just going to tell them the door's not there.
Yeah. And they're like, well, the door's open, but it's frozen shut. So we'll tell them in the morning. And then they go back to camp. And what happens, because the sound girl goes missing immediately. She's just gone.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know, I don't think it was an avalanche or something happens. I was watching this while I was helping a customer, mind you, so I was just kind of in and out. But
and then somehow people with guns come.
Yes, people show up with guns because the one guy hurts his leg. Sound girl disappears, and they're trying to move the guy with his leg all fucked up.
And in true fashion, he goes, "Just leave me behind."
Yeah, just leave me behind, but you go, leave me the flare gun. Because they fire a flare off at one point. It's like, oh, someone's going to come for us, which the wrong people come for them, which is random people with guns. And they leave the guy with his fucked up leg with the flare gun. And they're like, oh, well, there's a door over there. It's like, wow, you didn't think to tell us this before we were starting to freeze to death?
So then, the guy tries to shoot the guy with the flare gun, and they just light his ass up.
Yeah, he misses immediately. And they don't. Just capped right in the face. You just see him drop.
So what I don't understand is, how is the door now just unfrozen?
Movie magic?
The door is fine now. It can be opened.
Yeah, they had no problem. I guess they just needed a third guy who also gets shot twice.
Yeah.
And just leaning him against the door, I guess, was just enough oomph to open it up.
But you have to also remember they were talking about how the door looks like it's locked from the outside. It doesn't keep people out. It keeps something inside.
Dun dun dun. But then they go in anyway
Yeah, this is going.
because they got to make money off of this movie, so they got to have more shit happen. So they go inside and they close the door behind them, which again doesn't make sense because if someone's chasing you with a gun and the lock is on the outside, you're giving them all the power. They could still get in whenever they want to. You're in it anyway. But as soon as they close the door, the people with the guns lock it immediately, as they would. Because they know that place clearly, and they're like, all right, well, you can't leave now, so click. And then they're in the pitch black, and they're fumbling around with the camera, and they're like, oh, there's a fucking lever on the wall. Which our experience with levers, it's never a good thing. But they flip it, and the lights come on, and they all the bulbs start popping because they're 50, 60 years old, and they're like, oh, let's go explore. There's got to be another way out, which why would there be? You don't know that. It's a mountain with a door in it. You don't know anything.
Yeah.
So they're going down the hallway. They find this lab-looking thing, and they leave the one guy because at this point he's just on the floor bleeding out because he's been shot several times.
Yeah.
And then they discover another door. Ooh.
Wait. When was the camera discovered before or after this?
Which camera?
Remember, they find another camera in there.
Oh, this
that
was
matches.
That was after.
Oh, it's still after.
Yeah.
All right.
Or no, it was actually right at this point.
I thought it was it was in the lab. So they find a camera that matches the other guy's camera. It's identical.
It was identical.
And then they decide to play it. Oh, it's got battery. Let's try it out. And it just somehow still has battery, but we'll get into that in a little while. How is it still battery? And
it was just running out of battery, so they had to fast forward really quick.
And it's just the exact footage from their camera.
Yeah, starting with because they go to meet. Oh, that's right. We missed a whole part. Oh, good thing you mentioned the camera. They go to meet Yuri. Because he was the survivor. He was
in a psych ward.
Yeah, he was in a psych ward, as you would be, I guess, from surviving that. But they go there with the cameras and are met outside by another man, and he's yelling at them, "No cameras, no cameras. You can't meet him." They're like, "But why?" And he's like, they actually said that, "But why?" He's like, "'Cause he's dead." And they're like, "Oh no!" And then he goes back inside the building. And they look up in the window and see Yuri, I would imagine, holding a sign that they never felt the need to decipher. Because he wrote something on a piece of cardboard and that gets pulled away. And they're like, oh, I wonder what he wrote on the thing. You have it on camera. Pause it and decipher it. They never do. So getting back to this, they fast forward. They see all their footage and then the camera dies. And then
I thought it died a long time ago, but yep.
Should have. But then they're like, oh, there's another door over here. We got to see what's in there. And they're like, can you walk? To the man dying on the floor. He's like, well, no. As a matter of fact, I can't. So he's like, believe me, just, go check it out and come back. They're like, yeah, sure. So pop the door open. They're walking in there. They start to find, don't they find like burnt bodies?
Yeah, some kind of, there's meat hooks.
There's meat hooks. There's burnt bodies.
It smells horrible. And you just go, if it smells horrible, you definitely enter the room.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great idea. Phenomenal idea, actually. But then they find, what is it? They found a dead soldier?
Yeah, they found soldiers with like Soviet uniforms.
Yeah, they find Soviet uniforms and they find a book full of soldier information. And they're flipping through it, and in Russia, she's like, oh, I know this word. Which, who cares? It's not interesting enough to make a fact out of it. But they're like, she's like, I know this word. And he's like, oh, what does it mean? She's like, oh, it means died in action. It's like, okay, great.
But they're also talking about that teleportation ship.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. They get into that, and they're like, oh, well, I there's a picture of this ship, but I recognize it. And she's like, okay, who gives a shit? He's like, no, this was where they were doing a bunch of testing, teleportation, and all of these soldiers that died in action died when they teleported the ship, because he has this information. They teleported the ship and they were fused with the bulkhead, and there's
Yes.
pictures of them sticking out half from the wall, and the ones that didn't went crazy. And it's like, all right, cool, gives a shit. And
Well, it
then
has to do with the end.
it does, yeah. But then then they hear a noise, and that's when we meet the creatures. They're humanoid-esque creatures that they roar, and they start teleporting around the room, and they kill the shit out of the one guy that was bleeding out, because you meet them when you hear him scream,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, he's not okay," and they run back to him, and he's just dead, like he's dying on the floor because they fucked him up bad.
He would have died anyway, dude.
He wasn't gonna make it.
They
He's in
helped
the
him
middle of
out.
the tundra.
They helped him out. They sped it up.
That was nice of them, I guess.
Yeah.
But then they start going after the two people, and they're fighting them, but they're not really hitting them. They're kind of just like roaring at them, letting them run away, which is odd. Why would they do that?
And then they get chains, don't they? A chain.
Do they get a chain?
And then she whips it.
Oh, she whips it out of yeah, and
And it just disappears.
they just teleport because that's what they do.
Yeah.
But then they run and they find another door, and they go in there and they lock it behind them because they can't teleport through doors apparently. They go anywhere within the confines of the bunker. They just can't go through a door. So then they're in a room, and they find, what do they find? They find a big cave that he says isn't man-made, but it looks like man widened it, which is a fact that they could have left out because who gives a shit? And she throws a rock, and and it's a wormhole, a big old wormhole in a cave. And this is where it turns into Grasping at Straws, the movie. Because then he goes into his whole rant where they're teleporting, and that would explain. And he says this, and it pissed me off immediately. This would explain Mothman. How? Why? Why would it explain Mothman? Mothman has wings. Mothman can fly. He doesn't need to teleport. It doesn't explain him at all.
Exactly. And we just did an episode on him last week, or released it Saturday, or whatever day it was. It was our last episode, Mothman. We're part of it.
He does not teleport.
He flies.
He flies. There's no need to teleport. So him saying that set me off. It shouldn't have. The movie's from like 2013. I shouldn't be this angry. But it set me off so bad. He's like, this would explain a lot of things. No, it wouldn't. So they basically get to the all is lost moment, and they're like, well, the only way out is through that wormhole, which there's nothing to support that.
Or they can go back out through the door and fight the creatures.
Sure. But no, wormhole seems like the more plausible thing. The creatures weren't actually hitting them, which they mentioned. They're like, oh, they weren't touching us. Why? But they're like, all right, so we're going to go through the wormhole now. And they take about 10 minutes to walk towards it.
But then she goes, you're supposed to picture where you want to be, and that's where it's going to teleport you to. So where do they want to teleport to? What do you think they say? The stupidest thing in the world. Just picture yourself outside the door for the main entrance.
They could have said home. They could have said Disney World. They could have said the moon.
Just right back outside the door where the guys with the guns were.
Guys with the guns were, they're not dressed for the weather. It didn't make a lick of sense. Which, again, mind you, she's like, "Oh, you have to picture where you want to go." Why would you know that? You just found a wormhole in a cave.
She's
You
an
don't know. She's an expert on something she knows nothing. It doesn't matter. So they again take 10 minutes to walk towards it. Then they go through said wormhole, and the screen goes dark. And then when it lights up again, you see two bodies laying in the snow right outside the door, which is our heroes dead in the snow.
And then guess what? The woman's aunt or the guy's aunt comes over and goes, "Hey, there's two more over here." And I'm like, no, there's not. Just go somewhere else.
It's like, and then the Russian government is like, "Oh, we will take it. We'll take it from here. Go back down the mountain."
Oh, those are the two bodies. The 11.
Yeah, they.
That was the extra ones.
That's right. It didn't make any sense before, but it all comes together now.
Because they time traveled.
Yeah, this is the Shyamalan twist. And then the government, suspectingly the government, picks them up and, well, they didn't even pick them up. They just dragged them in the snow into the door. And then they go and you're going through but it's all like pristine now. It's not run down or dark. It's like pristine new bunker. And they drag them through and they're like, "Oh, these clothes, there's like nothing I've ever seen before." And they time traveled, and they drag them through and they strip them down, and then they hang them up on meat hooks. But then the bodies that get hung up on the meat hooks look just like the monsters because it was them all along. And as they're hung up, the camera closes in on the face and they start to move again. And then it roll credits.
Movie's over.
The movie's over. And it explains nothing. It explains why going through that wormhole turns them into monsters that can teleport. It doesn't explain why they're back in 1959. Nothing. It just says, "Oh, to this day, they still have no idea what happened." It's like, all right, well, you didn't know what happened either, because this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life.
So I want to apologize to you for making you watch that.
No, this was on me. I blame myself.
I, on the other hand, just listened to it through that podcast, Fear and Wine, while I was driving from one job site to another, so I didn't have to worry about it and have to see it. And it wasn't like wasting my time per se because I was doing something else and I could just listen. You had to deal and stare at it for an hour and 40 minutes.
I did this on my lunch break and while I was helping customers. I had the phone propped up. So if any of my customers are listening and I looked visibly angry today, I apologize.
So then
it wasn't you.
But this is what I was getting at with how is that camera still alive? So, because if you remember, he takes the camera and they put it on the thing.
Yeah.
Because he teleported back in time with the camera, put it on the thing. Did they charge it or did it just sat there and somehow had enough battery to last, 54 years? I want that battery.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's not bad at all. So what I'm getting is that those creatures that were attacking them before they went through the portal were them attacking themselves.
It was them all along, I guess.
I guess it was them all along. So the end of the movie, the whole thing, your biggest enemy is yourself.
Wow, that's powerful.
That's what the movie's trying to tell you. You're the only one that can stop you from being great.
I guess, but it doesn't make sense. They go back through the fucking wormhole, and they look like themselves from the whole time. But then once they put them up on the meat hooks, they look completely different. This movie... All right, listen, guys. I highly recommend watching it, and I'm going to tell you going in, it's a bad movie. This is dog shit in its purest form. You will not feel whole after watching it. There's no great conclusion. It's a bad movie. But if you're going to do anything, if you want to... Get a group together for bad movie watching night, order a pizza, and just enjoy. That's all I'm going to say. I wish I watched this with a group. I really do. But I watched it alone in a cold car on my phone. So, yeah, that's my synopsis of Devil's Pass.
So, I mean, it got a cool 48 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that certified fresh. I don't think. No. No.
Close?
No, this is like the tomato that falls out of the box and just smushes on the floor.
So, you're saying you would watch it again?
Only with a group of people.
With a group of people okay. You would never watch this by yourself again.
No, which baffles me because all of the comments in because it's free on YouTube with ads. Enjoy, don't pay for this movie. All of the comments are like, "Oh, this is a great movie. I watch it at least once a year. I love this movie." The top comment is, "Oh, who else is here in 2025?" I think it was just me. But yeah, people love this movie, and I don't know why. It makes zero sense to me.
So you're saying don't pay for it, do not support that movie to make it.
I wouldn't. Not in a million years. I watched it free with ads.
Well, then, should they make a sequel to explain everything? There's nothing to explain.
It doesn't. The first part didn't make sense. The explanation's not going to make any sense. They don't even know what they were doing.
No?
No, they don't explain who the guys with the guns are. They don't explain.
Yeah, the two random guys that started shooting at him.
They weren't military.
Yeah, just two random. Yeah. Don't go in the door. Somehow it unfroze during the scene.
Yeah, they needed the heat of a dying man to push it open, I guess.
Yeah.
Bad movie.
Unbelievable. But anyway, should we tell him about the update on the Call of Duty episode?
Is there an update?
He told me today his new mic came.
Okay. All right. So we're making progress.
We're making a little headway. We were supposed to, I guess before this was supposed to come out, we were supposed to do another episode with Jim. But again, that didn't work. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is when we have guests, it's horrible. So we're going to try to get out some guest episodes, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's gonna take a little practice, but we'll get there.
Yeah. There is a couple more. I'll release information later. I'll talk to Josh after this episode that I would like to do in Russia that are, still interesting. But again, yes, if you enjoyed listening to this, please rate us on Spotify. Leave a comment on Spotify. We have comments on. And give us a follow on X and Instagram.
I'd also like to mention that we got a response to the beans on toast.
Yes, we did.
We did. And let's see. I have it here because you sent it to me very... Shout out to our friend S. Hammers, who says, baked beans on toast is elite, especially with some grated cheese and a dash of Worcestershire sauce. I'm going to try it.
The only question I have, though, is he didn't specify which cheese. What grated cheese? Parmesan? Cheddar?
I would think Parmesan.
You think Parmesan?
I would. Yeah.
Because you don't really grate cheddar, right? No, you do.
You can.
You call it grated. But
Yeah.
usually grated cheese is Parmesan, right?
Yeah. You grate any cheese.
We usually say, like, shredded cheddar, not grated cheddar. But
That's true. You put shredded cheddar on your tacos.
yeah. Yes, S. Hammers is he's an elite fan. I should say that. He's great.
Well, I appreciate that he didn't get mad at us and actually gave us a real answer. So thank you for that.
Some people get mad at us.
Well,
But that's beside the point.
it's besides the point. So Devil's Pass, I give it a 5 stars out of 100, and go ahead and watch it.
Give it a shot, and yeah, don't trust any Simons.
Yeah, if you know a Simon, don't talk to him anymore. What's the other guy's name?
Yuri.
Yuri. If you know a Yuri, I don't know any. But
I don't know any either.
he could be a serial killer. He could be Simon's gay lover. He could just be a guy with a bum knee.
We'll never know.
We'll never know. This is going off the rails.
All right, guys. Until next time.
Bye.